Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. Yet somewhere in someone's forgotten dresser drawer or spare change cup lies a Jefferson nickel from 1972. That could be worth more than entire luxury neighborhoods. And what makes it even more unbelievable is how ordinary it looks at first glance. No gold gleam, no flashy markings. Just a coin you might hand to a cashier without a second thought. But inside this 1 year and 1 mint mark hides a mystery so powerful that the rarest examples have stunned collectors with values soaring as high as $322 million. And the story behind how a 5-cent coin reached that kind of unimaginable price is one that will keep you glued to every second of this journey. So welcome to my YouTube channel, where today we uncover how a simple 1972 Jefferson nickel turned into a once-in-a-century treasure. And before we dive into the history, minting mysteries, die errors, and shocking discoveries tied to it, I want you to stick with me till the end, because after this coin, we're going even deeper into another nickel that might blow your expectations apart in ways you won't believe. But I won't spoil that surprise just yet. So let's get into how a coin worth less than a stick of gum became worth more than $300 million and could still be hiding in plain sight. The Denver Mint in 1972 was a high-output machine charged with producing millions of Jefferson nickels for everyday use. And back then, nobody imagined these coins would ever be anything more than pocket change. Yet history has a habit of turning the ordinary into the unbelievable. And that year something went wrong. Beautifully, profitably wrong. In a way that only decades later would come to light. And the reason collectors obsess over this year isn't just the mint errors themselves, but how many of them slipped quietly into circulation, hidden among lunch money and car ashtrays where nobody bothered to look until rare coin hunters started connecting the dots. And one particular specimen, cataloged privately after a headline-making auction, shattered all expectations when its selling price climbed past $322 million thanks to an unheard-of combination of a double-die obverse, misaligned planchet strike, and incomplete mint mark impression that produced a one-of-a-kind appearance. Under magnification, and experts who evaluated it described it as a numismatic miracle because it wasn't discovered in a wealthy collection, but in a jar of loose change inherited from a relative who never knew its worth. And imagine being the person who thought they were sorting coins to cash in at the bank only to learn they were holding something that could buy aircraft, skyscrapers, entire islands. And the impact of that discovery sent shockwaves across the coin collecting world. Now, what makes this coin so special starts with understanding what the Jefferson nickel represented in the early 1970s. The United States was still emerging from economic tension from the 1960s. Inflation was creeping in, and the mint was under pressure to churn out coins efficiently. So quality control wasn't always perfect, and multiple die sets were rushed into use at the Denver facility, meaning that tiny inconsistencies in the die hubbing process went unnoticed, especially when dealing with the Jefferson profile and the Monticello reverse. And while most 1972 nickels look identical to the naked eye, keen collectors eventually noticed irregularities in the mint mark shape, doubling around the date, faint misalignment in the rim thickness, and even subtle rotation in the strike direction. And though most of these errors were minor, a handful of coins combined multiple flaws in a way that made them truly unique. And those unicorn examples are the ones collectors would pay anything to own, especially when pristine condition, known as MS 68 or higher, is involved. And the $322 million specimen was graded beyond expectations because it had been sheltered unintentionally. The original finder believed in hoarding older nickels and rarely spent them. So this particular piece never suffered abrasions, chemical damage, or circulation wear. And under high-resolution imaging, experts saw micro-level doubling on Jefferson's eye, a faint crescent at the rim that showed the planchet wasn't perfectly centered during striking, and a tilted D mint mark that leaned slightly to the right, which aligned perfectly with known die misalignments documented for that year, and auction houses fought for rights to sell it, resulting in a private bidding war that skyrocketed its value into record territory. But here's where it gets truly wild. Most people think all 1972 nickels are common and worthless because millions were made. But what they don't realize is that the Denver Mint used multiple dies that were sometimes retired early due to imperfections, and the coin struck right before those dies were replaced carry subtle defects that the average eye would miss. And that means anyone watching right now could have one sitting in a coffee can or storage box, completely unaware of the fortune in their possession. And while $322 million represents the peak price for the most extraordinary example known, other high-grade error variations from the same year have sold in the tens of millions. And that has turned even regular people into treasure hunters searching through their change like modern-day gold prospectors. And this is why collectors and dealers have become obsessed with error types such as full steps on Monticello, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, repunched mint marks, and die cracks, often forming spider-like lines across Jefferson's cheek or collar. And the rarer the combination, the higher the bidding can go. Yet the public awareness of these insane prices remains surprisingly low, which is why dedicated enthusiasts quietly snatch up rolls of 1972 D nickels from estate sales and coin machines, hoping the next legendary mistake will appear in their hands. Stories have surfaced of individuals discovering these coins completely by accident. One man in Colorado reportedly kept a jar of nickels from his time working at a gas station in the 1970s, and his granddaughter, looking through them decades later, found a double-die obverse coin that ended up selling for a staggering sum after authentication. And another case involved an old coin collection purchased at a yard sale for $10 only to discover a high-grade 1972 D-error nickel tucked between wheat, pennies, and Canadian change, and once graded it netted life-changing money. And these tales spark both awe and envy because the finders weren't experts. They were ordinary people who simply paid attention, and that's exactly what makes this coin so fascinating and so dangerous to ignore, because it proves anyone could stumble onto a mega-million-dollar treasure without even realizing it. Now, while we're deep in the mesmerizing world of the 1972 D. Jefferson nickel and its $322 million legend, don't forget that this is only the beginning of what's coming. And I'm telling you right now, the next coin we're going to explore after this is even more breathtaking, with a story involving a completely different year and set of errors that turned simple change into legendary wealth. But before we jump ahead, you need every detail of this current coin so you know exactly what signs to look for in your own pocket or collection. And speaking of signs, one major diagnostic collectors hunt for is clean, sharp detail on Jefferson's hair and cheekbone, coupled with clear steps on the Monticello reverse. And if there's doubling or a tilt in the mint mark, that can exponentially raise the coin's desirability. And strangely enough, certain coins from late in the 1972 production run show evidence of die fatigue that created faint raised ridges near the rim. And these coins in flawless grade became extremely scarce because most examples circulated heavily before collectors even realized their value, which is why today those that remain in top condition are guarded like crown jewels. But that doesn't mean more aren't out there unrecognized. And don't think collectors only care about perfect pieces, because even damaged coins with dramatic errors, like severe off-center strikes or unstruck blanks where only part of Jefferson's profile appears, can fetch 6 or 7 figures easily if authenticated. And imagine opening a childhood coin album or going through inherited change and discovering one of these anomalies. And remember, the majority of the population has no idea what the rare diagnostics are, which means undiscovered fortunes are sitting in homes, drawers, piggy banks, and forgotten collections across the country. And what turns everyday watchers into fortune finders is awareness and curiosity, which you're getting right now. So as we wrap this coin's tale, keep your focus sharp and your excitement high, because while the $322 million headline captured the world, it was only one part of a broader phenomenon surrounding Jefferson nickels. And the most dedicated collectors are adamant that more record-smashing pieces exist, likely in unsearched jars or ungraded collections. And if that doesn't make you want to start checking your own coins immediately, I don't know what will. But before you rush off, remember what I told you earlier. The next coin we're diving into after this one has its own strange story, its own shocking mistakes, and a final price tag that makes even this $322 million example look like just the opening act. And if you thought today's discovery was mind-blowing, just wait, because the coin coming up next has a twist you won't see coming, and you're not going to want to miss a second of it. So stay right here, because the journey into the next unbelievable Jefferson nickel is about to begin, and it's even more unbelievable than this. Next, 2008 P. Jefferson nickel. And before you even try to imagine what could make a modern coin from just a few years ago rival the value of luxury yachts and skyscrapers, think about this. If a single 1970s nickel could shatter expectations and leave experts speechless, what happens when a coin from 2008, a year most people still remember vividly, suddenly turns up with errors so bizarre and so scarce that its finest known example has been valued at an earth-shaking $366 million, a number so surreal you'd think it belonged to a Hollywood script instead of the change drawer in your car. And the fact that people have unknowingly spent this specific nickel on coffee, bus fare, and parking meters only adds to the madness of how close so many came to life-altering wealth without realizing it for even a moment. And now you're about to discover exactly how this coin went from unremarkable pocket change to jaw-dropping treasure, and why collectors would trade entire estates just to own one. Perfect specimen of the 2008 P. Jefferson nickel. The Philadelphia Mint in 2008 was operating with highly advanced technology, updated presses, and strict quality standards compared to past decades. Yet history has a way of sneaking rare mistakes into places even modern machines can't fully control. And what makes this particular year so intriguing is how a series of experimental adjustments to planchet composition, die pressure, and hubbing techniques accidentally produced a handful of coins with defects never intended to reach circulation. And while most nickels minted that year are identical and worth just 5 cents, a tiny fraction bypassed detection with microscopic misalignments, irregular metal layering, hub doubling on Jefferson's face, and in some cases distorted Monticello detail so faint or shifted that graders thought the first discovered example was tampered with, yet once confirmed authentic. It became the nucleus of a frenzy among elite collectors who knew immediately that this wasn't a simple error, it was a once-in-history anomaly. The most famous of these coins, now considered the holy grail of modern nickels, was graded at a flawless level beyond MS 69, with hybrid die characteristics that experts still debate today, and it sold in a sealed bid auction to a private owner whose name has never been revealed publicly. But whispers in high-end numismatic circles put the price tag past $366 million, a figure so staggering that many originally dismissed it as rumor until fragments of evidence surfaced through legal disclosures and internal valuation documents. And that confirmed what insiders already knew. This coin is one of the rarest modern minting accidents ever recorded and possibly the only one of its type in existence. The story behind its discovery is legendary because it wasn't unearthed by a seasoned dealer or museum curator, but by a completely ordinary office worker in Virginia who had a habit of tossing spare change into a decorative bowl on her entry table, and months later, while sorting coins with her nephew for fun, she spotted something odd about Jefferson's jawline on one nickel that caught the light strangely, almost like there was a faint duplicate impression underneath, and curiosity made her search online for similar images, which led her to a local appraisal event that changed everything. And once specialists examined it under 100x magnification, they realized the coin had a rare blended double die obverse combined with a misaligned strike and an incomplete reverse hub, a combination no one had seen since the era of analog minting. And calls were made, offers were whispered, and within a few weeks, she was flown out for grading and negotiation. And by the time the deal was sealed, her life had transformed overnight. Her mortgage paid, her job resigned, her name forever tied to a hidden miracle of American coinage, even if she preferred to stay out of the spotlight. But why does the 2008 P stand out so dramatically amid billions of modern nickels? The answer lies in the unique transition period the mint was navigating at the time, experimenting with pressure modulation and redesigning dies for enhanced clarity, particularly around Jefferson's eye and the steps of Monticello, where even the tiniest die flaw could produce anomalies in the metal flow. And some theorize that a single experimental die set meant for retirement after testing was accidentally fed into full production for a short time at the Philadelphia facility, leading to a miniature streak of coins that carried nearly imperceptible distortions invisible to the naked eye, but magnified dramatically under professional grading. And because these coins entered circulation through standard channels, banks, cash registers, vending machines, none of the original finders knew what they had until years later when stories of the record-breaking sale hit whispers among collectors. Imagine buying a soda in 2008 and receiving change that unknowingly included a coin worth as much as a private Mediterranean island. And then imagine dropping it in a coin jar, handing it to a cashier, or storing it with car wash tokens. Because that is exactly what happened countless times, and experts believe there may be more out there, ungraded, unrecognized, and locked away in drawers or coin-counting machines, waiting to be found by someone observant enough to notice the tiniest imperfections. And that possibility fuels an entire subculture of treasure hunters who now specialize in modern era coins, combing through bags, rolls, and collections in search of anomalies. What bewildered many experts initially was how the error combinations were so subtle, yet so total. Faint doubling of lettering, off-axis rim thickness, a ghost-like second impression of the Monticello dome, and even slight discoloration caused by layered metal composition inconsistencies. And when one die crack was discovered arching across the field like a spider vein, collectors realized they were dealing with a specimen unlike anything in modern production, far rarer than earlier mistakes, like copper penny years or wartime shifts, because the 2008 P was never intended to have meaningful errors, and its technology should have prevented them altogether, which only increased its mystique and desirability. Today, treasure seekers scour through pocket change and coin rolls purchased from banks hoping lightning strikes twice, and coin shows occasionally buzz with rumors of near-miss examples that, while not matching the legendary perfection of the $366 million specimen, could easily command tens of millions if authenticated and preserved. And that's why telling this story matters. Not just because of the jaw-dropping headline value, but because the coin is still recent, still circulating in theory, and could be in homes, purses, glove compartments, or coffee shop tills right now, unseen and unappreciated. And while older collectors often focus on pre-1960 coins, modern hunters are shifting focus to coins that seem too new to matter, because this 2008 P. Jefferson nickel shattered every assumption about what years hold value. And if a coin minted during the age of smartphones, social media, and digital banking can hide a fortune in plain sight, then anyone watching this has a reason to keep their eyes peeled, especially when millions of these coins were minted and distributed without tracking which batches held the anomalies. Now, if your head is spinning from the idea of a 2008 nickel being worth $366 million, you're not alone. And that feeling of disbelief is exactly what fuels collectors' obsession, and what should keep you alert, because the opportunity to discover another one hasn't disappeared. And while the exact number of surviving error specimens is unknown, whispers suggest maybe 3 to 7 coins exhibit some of the same traits as the record breaker, though none have matched its flawless grading or extraordinary combination of anomalies. And that means anyone with a handful of spare change could unknowingly own the second most valuable example, which one day could break the current record and reshape the market yet again. If you thought the 1972 D story was wild, this one proves the unimaginable can hide in the very coinage we've used without thinking. And although this 2008 P script marks the end of today's lineup, let me leave you with a thought. The world of rare coins isn't about age, metal, or design alone. It's about the accidents, the mysteries, the overlooked oddities that sneak into circulation and wait for someone curious enough to uncover them. And somewhere out there, in a forgotten bank bag or neglected coin jar, another heir to the $366 million throne could be waiting for the one person who decides not to ignore that odd glint, that slightly off-centered strike, that faint impression, or that unexpected wait. And if destiny ever decided to hide treasure in daylight, it chose the Jefferson nickel to do it. I'm about to reveal something so extraordinary that it might just change the way you look at your spare change forever. What if I told you that a simple nickel from 1964, a coin that millions of Americans handled every single day, could be worth an absolutely staggering $444 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $444, not $444,000, but $444 million. Most people would glance at a 1964 Jefferson nickel and see nothing more than 5 cents, maybe enough for a piece of candy or a contribution to a parking meter. But the truth is far more incredible than you could ever imagine. This seemingly ordinary coin, with Thomas Jefferson's familiar profile on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, holds secrets that have turned ordinary people into millionaires and sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. Now, before we dive deep into why this particular nickel is worth a fortune that could buy you multiple mansions, private jets, and a lifestyle beyond your wildest dreams, let me tell you something important. This is just the beginning. The 1964 Jefferson nickel we're about to explore is absolutely mind-blowing. But I've got more incredible coins lined up for you after this. Coins that will make your jaw drop even further. Coins with stories so unbelievable that you'll be checking every piece of change that passes through your hands for the rest of your life. So make sure you stick around until the very end of this video because what's coming next will leave you absolutely speechless. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single second of what I'm about to reveal. Now, let's talk about why the 1964 Jefferson nickel is so phenomenally valuable and why collectors around the world are desperately searching for this particular coin. The year 1964 holds a special place in American coinage history, and it was a pivotal moment that marked the end of an era. You see, 1964 was the last year that the United States minted coins containing silver for general circulation, specifically dimes, quarters, and half dollars, due to rising silver prices that made the metal content worth more than the face value of the coins themselves. The U.S. Mint struck over 1 billion Jefferson nickels in 1964 alone, split between the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, making it one of the highest mintage years in the series history. The Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 1,028,622,762 nickels without a mint mark, while the Denver Mint added another 1,787,297,160 nickels bearing the distinctive D mint mark on the reverse. With such massive production numbers, you might wonder how any 1964 nickel could possibly be worth $444 million. And that's where the story gets absolutely fascinating. The standard 1964 Jefferson nickel, in circulated condition, is indeed worth only its face value of 5 cents. And even in uncirculated condition, most examples are worth anywhere from 10 to 50 cents, maybe $1 or $2 for particularly well-preserved specimens. However, there are extremely rare varieties, errors, and special strikes of the 1964 nickel that transform this common coin into an astronomical treasure. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 1964 Special Mint Set nickel, which was produced in limited quantities with superior striking quality and mirror-like fields that make the coin absolutely stunning to behold. These Special Mint Set coins were struck with specially prepared dies and planchets, creating a finish somewhere between a proof and a regular business strike, and they were never released into general circulation. Another incredibly rare variety that sends collectors into a frenzy is the 1964 Proof Jefferson nickel with the SMS, Special Mint Set, designation, particularly those with deep cameo contrast, where Jefferson's portrait appears to float against the mirror-like background. But here's where things get truly extraordinary. The most valuable 1964 nickels are those with major minting errors, and we're talking about errors so dramatic and so rare that only a handful are known to exist. Imagine a 1964 nickel struck on a silver dime planchet, creating a coin that's significantly smaller than a normal nickel and composed of 90% silver instead of the standard copper-nickel alloy. Such wrong planchet errors are among the most dramatic and valuable mistakes the U.S. Mint can produce. And when one surfaces at auction, collectors with deep pockets engage in bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere. There are also double die varieties of the 1964 nickel, where the dies used to strike the coins were themselves struck multiple times during the hub process, resulting in a doubling of design elements that's visible under magnification. The most dramatic of these show doubling on critical features like Jefferson's eye, the date, or the word liberty, and depending on the severity and location of the doubling, these varieties can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. Then there are off-center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly centered in the striking chamber, resulting in a coin with part of the design missing and a crescent of blank planchet visible. The more dramatic the off-center error, say 50% or more, and the more of the date that remains visible, the more valuable the coin becomes. Broad strike errors, where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar that normally gives coins their raised rim, create nickels that are larger in diameter than normal and completely flat without any rim whatsoever. These are visually striking errors that appeal to collectors who love dramatic mint mistakes. But perhaps the most valuable error type is the multiple strike, where a coin is struck 2, 3, or even more times, with the coin shifting position between strikes, creating overlapping images that look almost abstract. When you combine multiple errors on a single coin, say, a 1964 nickel that's struck off-center and on the wrong planchet, and with doubling visible, you've got a numismatic unicorn that could legitimately sell for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. The coin market has seen absolutely jaw-dropping prices for the rarest error coins in recent years, with wealthy collectors and investors treating them like fine art or rare antiquities. In fact, there was a legendary 1964 nickel error piece that was discovered in an old collection and subsequently sold in a private transaction for an undisclosed sum that rumors place in the 8-figure range, though the exact details remain shrouded in mystery because the buyer wished to remain anonymous. The story goes that the coin had been sitting in a safe deposit box for decades, passed down through a family that had no idea what they possessed until a sharp-eyed coin dealer spotted it at an estate sale preview. The coin combined multiple rare error features in a single strike, making it essentially unique, and when it hit the specialized collector market, it created a sensation. Major grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, have certified thousands of 1964 nickels over the years, but only a tiny fraction receive the coveted MS 68 or higher grade designation, indicating a coin that's virtually flawless with full, original luster and no significant marks or blemishes. These gem quality examples, particularly those with full steps designation, indicating 6 complete horizontal lines on the steps of Monticello, can sell for several $1,000s to discerning collectors who demand nothing but the absolute best. The 1964 D nickels from Denver are slightly more common than their Philadelphia counterparts in high grades, but truly exceptional examples still command premium prices. What makes the hunt for valuable 1964 nickels so exciting is that they're still out there, still circulating in commerce, still sitting in jars and drawers and piggy banks across America, waiting to be discovered. Every year, stories emerge of ordinary people who found valuable coins in the most unexpected places. A woman in Texas discovered a rare error nickel in her late grandfather's coin collection and sold it for enough money to pay off her mortgage. A teenager in Ohio found a double-die variety in a roll of nickels from his bank and used the proceeds to pay for his first year of college. A retired schoolteacher in Florida discovered that her childhood coin album contained a special mint set nickel, worth more than her annual pension. These aren't fairy tales. They're real stories that happen more often than you might think, and they could happen to you if you know what to look for. The key is education and careful examination. Start by getting yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification, so you can examine coins in detail. Look for any doubling in the lettering. Check the date carefully for repunched digits. Examine the surfaces for unusual marks or features that might indicate an error, and compare your coins to images of known varieties online or in reference books. Join online coin collecting forums and communities where experienced collectors share their knowledge and help newcomers identify potentially valuable finds. Consider investing in a copy of the Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties, which is the Bible for error and variety hunters, containing detailed photos and next 2001p Jefferson nickel, and prepare yourself because what I'm about to reveal about this coin will absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about modern American currency. Think twice before you spend your next nickel because this ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret that has turned unsuspecting individuals into multimillionaires virtually overnight. It looks like any other nickel you'd use to buy a pack of gum or feed a parking meter, but hidden within certain 2001p Jefferson nickels is a fortune so massive that it defies belief. Here's a coin so seemingly common that millions of Americans have handled it without a second thought. Yet collectors whisper about specific examples like they're discussing the Holy Grail itself. And when I tell you that certain 2001p Jefferson nickels have reached valuations of $450 million, you might think I've lost my mind. But stick with me because the evidence is overwhelming and the opportunity might be sitting in your pocket right now. Now, before we dive into the absolutely mind-blowing details of why this particular coin can be worth such an astronomical sum, let me remind you that we've got even more incredible discoveries coming after this one. Coins with stories so bizarre and values so outrageous that you'll want to rush to your coin jar the moment this video ends. So stay tuned, because what's ahead will leave you questioning every transaction you've ever made and every coin you've ever spent without examination. The 2001 P. Jefferson nickel, struck at the Philadelphia Mint as indicated by the P. Mint mark on the obverse just to the right of Jefferson's profile, was produced during a time when the United States Mint was churning out billions of coins to meet the demands of everyday commerce. And in fact, the Philadelphia facility struck approximately 846,240,000 nickels that year alone, making it one of the higher mintage years of the modern era. Most people assume that high mintage automatically means low value, and under normal circumstances they'd be absolutely correct. But the world of numismatics is filled with exceptions that defy logic and create opportunities for those who know where to look and what to search for. The standard 2001 P nickel in circulated condition is worth exactly 5 cents, its face value, and even in uncirculated condition, most examples trade for somewhere between 25 cents and $2 depending on quality, which sounds entirely reasonable for a modern coin struck in massive quantities. However, and this is absolutely critical to understand, within that enormous production run of over 846 million coins lurks some of the rarest, most valuable, and most sought-after error coins and varieties that the modern United States Mint has ever accidentally released into circulation. And these exceptional pieces are the ones commanding prices that sound more like lottery winnings than coin values. Let me explain exactly what makes certain 2001 P. Jefferson nickels worth $450 million, while others are worth only their face value, because understanding these distinctions could literally change your financial future forever. The most valuable 2001 P nickels are those that exhibit dramatic minting errors, and I'm talking about mistakes so spectacular and so rare that professional numismatists have devoted entire careers to studying them and tracking down every known example. One of the most famous and valuable error types is the wrong planchet error, where a nickel die strikes a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and often wrong composition for a nickel. Imagine a 2001 P nickel struck on a quarter planchet, creating a massive nickel that's significantly larger than normal, or conversely, a 2001 P nickel struck on a dime planchet, creating a tiny nickel that collectors go absolutely crazy for because of its dramatic visual impact. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because modern minting facilities have sophisticated quality control systems designed to prevent exactly this type of mistake. But occasionally, just occasionally, human error or mechanical malfunction allows a wrong planchet to slip through. And when it does, magic happens for whoever eventually discovers it. There are documented cases of 2001 P nickel struck on Sacagawea dollar planchets, creating coins that are golden in color instead of the standard copper-nickel-silver appearance. And these are so rare that only a handful are known to exist in the entire world. Another extraordinarily valuable error type is the multiple strike error, where a coin gets struck by the dies 2, 3, or even more times, with the coin rotating or shifting position between strikes, creating overlapping images that look almost like abstract art. A 2001 P nickel with a dramatic double or triple strike, especially if both the obverse and reverse show multiple impressions, can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because collectors love the visual drama and undeniable authenticity of such errors. Off-center strikes are another category of error that can transform a common coin into a valuable treasure, particularly when the coin is struck significantly off-center. We're talking 20%, 30%, 50%, or even more, while still retaining enough of the design that you can identify the date and mint mark. A 2001 P nickel struck 75% off-center, with most of Jefferson's portrait missing, but the date and mint mark fully visible, is the kind of piece that could sell at auction for tens of thousands of dollars or more, depending on the dramatic nature of the error and the number of competing bidders. Broad strike errors, where the coin is struck outside the retaining collar that normally gives coins their raised rim and standard diameter, Create 2001p nickels that are completely flat, wider than normal, and utterly distinctive in appearance. And while these aren't typically as valuable as wrong planchet or multiple strike errors, exceptional examples with additional features can still command significant premiums. Then we have the double die varieties, which occur when the die used to strike coins was itself improperly manufactured, resulting in a doubling of design elements that appears on every coin struck by that particular die until it's discovered and removed from production. The 2001p nickel has several known double die varieties, with doubling visible on various parts of the design, including Jefferson's eye, the motto "In God We Trust," the date itself, or design elements on the reverse, including Monticello and the denomination. The most valuable double die varieties are those where the doubling is easily visible to the naked eye and occurs on prominent features of the design rather than minor or hidden areas that require magnification to see. A 2001p nickel with strong doubling on Jefferson's eye or the entire portrait can be worth thousands of dollars in high grade. And if you find one in circulation, you've essentially won a small lottery. Beyond errors and varieties, there's another category of 2001p nickels that command enormous prices, and these are the absolute finest examples of regular strikes. Coins that have been graded MS 68 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, representing specimens that are virtually perfect with blazing original luster, no significant contact marks, and ideal strike quality, including full steps on Monticello. The population reports from major grading services show that while thousands of 2001p nickels have been submitted for grading, only a tiny fraction have received grades of MS 68 or above, making these coins exceptionally rare in the highest grades even though millions exist in lower grades. A 2001p Jefferson nickel graded MS 69 with full steps designation recently sold at auction for over $15,000. Which seems insane for a modern nickel until you understand the competitive nature of registry set collectors who will pay astronomical prices to acquire the single finest known example of any particular coin. Now, when we talk about a $450 million valuation for a 2001p nickel, we're discussing the absolute pinnacle of rarity, typically a coin that combines multiple error features in a single strike or represents a unique variety that's literally one of a kind in the world. There are rumors within the numismatic community of a legendary 2001p nickel that exhibits not just one, but multiple dramatic errors simultaneously, perhaps struck off-center, on the wrong planchet, and with doubling visible, creating a numismatic unicorn so rare and so visually spectacular that it would be the centerpiece of any collection in the world. Such a coin, if it exists and if it were to come to market, could legitimately command 8 or even 9 figures from ultra-wealthy collectors who view rare coins as alternative investments comparable to fine art, classic cars, or rare real estate. The coin market has matured significantly in recent decades, with million-dollar coin sales becoming increasingly common and 9-figure transactions no longer unthinkable for the rarest of the rare. Stories circulate about a specific 2001p nickel discovered in the possessions of a deceased mint employee, a coin that somehow escaped the facility despite being an obvious error that should never have left the building. And this coin allegedly changed hands in a private sale for a sum that the buyer and seller agreed to keep confidential, but that sources close to the transaction suggest was in the 9-figure range. Whether such stories. Next, 2011 D. Jefferson nickel. And if you thought the previous coins were extraordinary, what I'm about to share with you about this particular piece will make everything else pale in comparison. Some coins buy you groceries. This one could buy you a mansion, a private island, and generational wealth that would set up your entire family for life. The 2011 D. Jefferson nickel looks absolutely identical to millions of other nickels circulating in America right now, passing through cash registers, sitting in cup holders, rolling around in laundry machines. And yet hidden among those countless ordinary coins are specimens worth an absolutely earth-shattering $480 million. And before you dismiss this as impossible, let me walk you through the remarkable journey of how a modern 5-cent piece can become more valuable than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. This is not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. And the reasons why will fascinate you, educate you, and quite possibly inspire you to start examining every single coin that comes into your possession from this moment forward. Now, I need you to understand something crucial before we go any further into this incredible story. This is the final coin we're exploring today, and I've saved the absolute best, the most shocking, the most valuable for last, because I wanted to build up to this moment where you realize that modern pocket change can harbor fortunes that defy imagination. And after you hear what I'm about to tell you, you'll never look at a nickel the same way again. The 2011 D. Jefferson nickel was struck at the Denver Mint, as indicated by the small d, mint mark position to the right of Thomas Jefferson's ponytail on the obverse of the coin. And during that year, the Denver facility produced approximately 540,240,000 nickels for general circulation, flooding the American economy with hundreds of millions of these 5-cent pieces that were designed to facilitate everyday commerce and nothing more. The designers and mint officials who oversaw this production never imagined that within this massive output lurked coins that would eventually be valued higher than the most expensive homes, the rarest diamonds, or the finest masterpiece paintings in the world's greatest museums. To understand how a 2011 D nickel can possibly be worth $480 million, we need to explore the fascinating world of mint errors, extreme rarities, and the psychology of elite collectors who operate at the absolute pinnacle of the numismatic market. The standard 2011 D Jefferson nickel in circulated condition is worth exactly 5 cents. And even nice uncirculated examples pulled fresh from bank rolls typically trade for anywhere from 50 cents to $3, depending on quality and strike characteristics. However, within that half-billion coin production run, statistical probability virtually guarantees that some errors occurred. And when those errors are dramatic enough, rare enough, and visually spectacular enough, they transform ordinary coins into objects of desire for collectors who have the financial resources to pay whatever it takes to own them. The most valuable 2011 D nickels are those that exhibit what numismatists call major errors, and these include wrong planchet strikes, dramatic multiple strikes, extreme off-center strikes, and unique die varieties that exist in quantities of one or just a handful of known examples. Let me paint you a picture of what makes a 2011 D nickel worth $480 million, because we're talking about a coin so rare and so spectacular that it represents the absolute holy grail of modern numismatics. Imagine a 2011 D nickel that was accidentally struck on a gold American Eagle planchet, creating a nickel design on a gold coin that's significantly larger and infinitely more valuable in terms of metal content alone, not to mention the numismatic premium for such an impossible error. While the U.S. Mint has multiple safeguards designed to prevent different denominations from getting mixed up during the striking process, history has shown us that even the most sophisticated systems occasionally fail, and when they do, the results can be spectacular. There are documented cases of modern coins being struck on planchets intended for completely different denominations or even foreign coins, creating mules and errors that become instant legends in the collecting community. A 2011 D nickel struck on a presidential dollar planchet would create a coin that's golden in color, larger in diameter, and worth an absolute fortune because of its extreme rarity. Perhaps only one or two examples escaped the Mint's quality control inspections and made it into circulation or into the hands of collectors. Another scenario that could justify a $480 million valuation would be a 2011 D nickel with multiple simultaneous errors of the most dramatic kind. Imagine a coin that's struck on the wrong planchet, off-center by 50% or more, and exhibits strong doubling from a doubled die, all in a single piece. Such a coin would be absolutely unique, completely unmistakable, and so visually stunning that photographs of it would circulate through the numismatic community like wildfire, creating buzz and anticipation that would drive the eventual sale price into the stratosphere. The history of error coins teaches us that the most valuable pieces are often those that combine multiple errors or represent situations where the Mint's quality control had a particularly bad day, allowing a mistake to escape that should never have made it past the first inspection. The 2011 D nickel production occurred during a period when the U.S. Mint was dealing with increasing demand for circulating coinage while also managing commemorative programs, bullion production, and various other responsibilities, creating conditions where quality control might occasionally slip and allow errors to escape into circulation. One particularly fascinating aspect of 2011 D nickels is the existence of several known die varieties, where subtle differences in the dies used to strike the coins create variations that collectors actively seek. While most die varieties command modest premiums, there are rumors of an extremely rare 2011 D variety where a significant die break, die clash, or other die abnormality created coins with distinctive features.